My name is Sarah McBride. I'm the National Press Secretary at the Human Rights Campaign. I work with various departments in our organization to make sure we're amplifying the work we do on behalf of the community and advocating for LGBTQ people in every avenue that we can.
My name is Noel Gordon. I am the Senior Program Specialist for HIV Prevention and Health Equity here at the Human Rights Campaign. And essentially in my role, I quarterback a lot of the work that we do to educate LGBTQ people and allies about the current realities of HIV and the steps they can take to protect themselves and their loved ones from the spread of HIV.
The Human Rights Campaign is the nation's largest LGBTQ civil rights organization. We work on a whole host of issues ranging from obviously marriage equality over the last decade to non-discrimination protections for LGBTQ people to global LGBTQ equality. But beyond legal equality, we also have programs that work to ensure that LGBTQ people are treated with respect and fairness in the workplace, in schools, and in our neighborhoods.
So the HIV and AIDS epidemic in some ways is very similar in the United States and abroad, and in some ways it's very different. In some ways, in ways that it's the same, gay and bisexual men around the world continue to be among the most disproportionately impacted community by HIV and AIDS. That's true in the United States, that's true in various parts of Asia, in sub-Saharan Africa, and so that's a trend that you see across the world. The same is true of transgender women. Sarah was talking about a lot of the negative health outcomes that transgender people face because of transphobia and discrimination and harassment, and HIV, increased HIV risk, is one of those negative health outcomes. And so it is essential for the global community to rally around sort of not just LGBT people who may be struggling in the US, but LGBT people who are struggling around the world. And that's really what the International AIDS Conference seeks to underscore and emphasize, that this is a global epidemic that requires a global commitment and global efforts to not only reduce HIV transmission rates, but ensure that people living with HIV are able to live free, open, and honest lives, free from discrimination, harassment, and have the medications that they need to keep themselves healthy and their loved ones healthy. We are so close. We have the tools in place right now to be able to end this epidemic, particularly in the US and in many parts of the world. However, if we don't have the political will to do that, then we'll be fighting this epidemic for decades to come. PrEP is a HIV prevention strategy that currently involves taking a once daily pill named Truvada that's made by a company here in the United States. In other parts of the world where PrEP has been studied more extensively, there's an alternative approach, which is called on-demand PrEP. And essentially what you do is you take a certain number of pills prior to a sexual encounter, you take the pills right after your sexual encounter, and then you take the pills a few days after your sexual encounter. So in total, you're not taking it daily, but sort of intermittently. And that has been shown to provide the same level of protection as the daily dosage, and that's a really appealing option for some people who may have issues adhering to a daily medication, like for example, young people or people who are transient, like homeless sort of youth or folks who are engaging in sex work. Or it's also for folks who may not be that sexually active, right? And so it's for folks who may be lower risk but still want to take control of their sexual health in the ways that PrEP provides. And so I think as you see more and more PrEP options become available, you see more and more people sort of get their skin in the game, so to speak. So right now, there are a number of countries in place, in addition to the United States, where PrEP is either being rolled out or is being approved to be rolled out. One such example is the country of France, right? So France recently gave the green light for pre-exposure prophylaxis, or PrEP, both as a daily HIV prevention strategy and also as an on-demand strategy. It's very important to note that the on-demand strategy hasn't been approved in the US, but I think the takeaway is that many countries are interested in pre-exposure prophylaxis or PrEP because of just how powerful it is and how safe and effective it's been proven to be, not just among gay and bisexual men and transgender women, but many other communities, including people who inject drugs and sex workers. And you actually see the sort of counterfactual or the opposite having devastating effects. For example, in the UK right now, gay and bisexual men are agitating to have sort of their national health program administer PrEP and cover the cost of it because it is a potentially life-changing drug. But the officials in the UK are refusing for various reasons, and so that's having a huge impact on gay and bisexual men in Britain right now who don't have access to this very powerful tool despite increasingly high rates of HIV among gay and bisexual men and many other communities. Well, what I will say is that I think there's a role for technology in helping to reduce barriers to people accessing not only pre-exposure prophylaxis, but any sort of number of sexual health services, whether that's vaccines or birth control or the morning after pill, so on and so forth. And so to the extent that technology can sort of put people in contact with providers or put people in contact with information about PrEP or put people in contact with local organizations who are dispensing sexual health services, I think that's a good thing. It has made connecting with people who share similar and sometimes different interests, values, hobbies than myself much easier. And I've benefited from sort of an exposure to a diversity of people and diversity of life stories. I think I've been changed personally in deep and profound ways by the interactions I've had with people on Grindr. And Grindr sort of makes those interactions more plentiful, right? They happen more frequently. They happen in safer spaces than I may be comfortable going up to someone at a bar or going up to someone at a club or even in a workplace. Part of the reason that people come to Grindr is because they identify in some way with the LGBTQ community, and so it just makes sort of connecting with people who are like-minded in that way much easier. In terms of the work that I do, Grindr has been really one of the leading companies to incorporate HIV prevention and STI prevention into their platform, and so to the extent that Grindr sort of has both in-app and offline sort of capabilities, programming services that sort of connect people to HIV testing locations, that makes people aware of providers in their area that may be providing pre-exposure prophylaxis, or even when there's a health outbreak that happens and sort of people need to be notified of information rather quickly and rather rapidly. Grindr provides a really unique platform for all of those things to come together and to exist simultaneously and rather seamlessly. In my work, my guiding principle is always to start at the margins and work toward the center. And by that I mean, if I craft a policy, or if I create a program, or if I develop a training with sort of the most marginalized people in mind, then everyone who is not as marginalized as that person is bound to be protected by that policy or by that program or by that training. And so if I'm talking about HIV, I know that the most heavily impacted communities are young gay and bisexual men and transgender women of color. And so I know that if my programs aren't developed with those populations in mind, that I'm doing a disservice to the communities that are most impacted, and it won't be nearly as successful at ending this epidemic as I would if I started with those communities first. And so I think for the people who are in the technology community, who are innovators, who are data scientists, what have you, that would be sort of my call to action would be to challenge yourselves to think beyond your own limited circumstance or beyond your own limited understanding, of which there's nothing wrong. We all sort of experience the world through the identities that we have or are born with. And so to push past that, to think, how can I reach across sort of an empathy gap that might exist, right? How can I really take a second to think about what would it mean for someone who lives in rural Arkansas to use this app? What would it mean for someone who is poor and trans and trying to make a way to use this app? Those are the types of questions that I think take sort of good social change efforts and make them into great or excellent social change efforts.
My name is Sarah McBride, National Press Secretary at the Human Rights Campaign.
This is Noel Gordon, Senior Program Specialist here at the Human Rights Campaign.
And I invite everyone to check out hackforequality.com.
You need to get on it right now.